Welcome to the Songwriters Across Texas podcast. This state has a lot to offer, and music is one of its greatest exports. On this podcast, we get to know songwriters through their stories and hear some of their music. Today, we're at Arlyn Studios, and my guest is Del Castillo. I'm Karl Anderson, and this is the Songwriters Across Texas podcast. Rick and Mark Del Castillo were born and raised in Brownsville, Texas, on the Mexican border. 2 of 7 musical children, separated by quite a few years. Rick was the middle brother. He found drums in the 2nd grade, and he played them until the 7th when he saw Led Zeppelin's concert film, The Song Remains the Same, and it made him change which instrument to play when he saw Jimmy Page. Mark was 8 years Rick's junior and the youngest, and by the time he picked up a guitar at 10, Rick was already out of the house and touring all around the country, running a hard rock circuit similar to the band Pantera. By the time that Mark was ready, Rick was already kind of had some ups and downs and moved on to teaching. But when Mark brought over their friend and fellow Brownsville native Alex Ruiz to try out to be a frontman, the 3 of them knew right away that they had something amazing. They played at Antone's, they played at Steamboat, and they played at a club called Momo's, where they got the attention one night of filmmaker Robert Rodriguez. They began to work on soundtracks for him, and they even formed a band with him called Chingong. These brothers are incredibly talented, and they're awfully nice at the same time. Rick and Mark Del Castillo, the Del Castillo brothers.
Thanks
for
Karl.
having us.
What are you going to start us off with?
We're going to do a song called
El Camino, Menos Transitado.
This is an instrumental off our first album.
played that song in a long time.
What the? I'm such a fan. I want to hear about your life, you guys, in the beginning. Now, Rick's 8 years older than you, Mark, right? So he got the start. But you also have older brothers and sisters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have three older brothers and sisters. One older brother and two older sisters.
Right,
and one older brother that passed. Yeah, he was actually my biggest. All my older siblings played music, so I remember hearing Magical Mystery Tour when I was 4. Because I had an older brother that, so right when it came out,
right.
and Let It Be and all that stuff, and then Hendrix. So that was really cool. And then my brother Manny, who passed, he used to work at Musicland. So I remember him bringing home Van Halen's first album. It was on 8-track, and it said demo not for sale.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
The 8-tracks are always interesting because they would switch the song orders sometimes. And
That Running with the Devil. And then it clicks back in and fades back in. Yeah,
exactly. That drove me mad with the 8-track.
Yeah.
But you had the older brother, and you also had an uncle, right?
Uncle Wayne Ceballos. Yeah,
He's still alive. Yeah,
Uncle Wayne, but he was in the business big time.
Oh, he was. Yeah, he was in the whole West Coast scene when it was happening in the '60s. He actually played with Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Carlos Santana. It's interesting if you look at
probably.
The Dead. Well, if you look there, one day I was looking at his scrapbook, and his band's name was Ohm.
AUM.
Depends on where you. And they were headlining Bill Graham's what do you call it? West Fillmore West, and his band was headlining, and underneath them was Elvin Bishop, Santana Blues Band, Grateful Dead, Jefferson Airplane.
I'd like to hear some of that music. I don't remember ever hearing it. You are a lefty, and when you got guitar, you didn't play it lefty.
I played air guitar left-handed. Until my best friend who lived across the street was taking guitar at the church, and so I said, "Man, that's really cool. I want to learn how to play." He says, "I don't want to have to take the time to show you how to play the chords backwards." So, unbeknownst to me back then, the chords didn't matter if you're left or right-handed. A chord is a chord. So he thought he was going to have to show them to me backwards. He goes, "Dude, just learn how to play right-handed. Anyway, nobody plays the guitar left-handed. Only Tony Iommi and Jimi Hendrix.
You're right. Exactly.
My two big heroes. Yeah.
And Paul McCartney plays lefty too.
And so I don't know why to this day. I mean, especially more recently, I'm like, why did I play right-handed? Just because my best friend told me to play right-handed because he didn't want to show me the chords backwards.
But you said it gave you something that for your playing, that because you were playing with it was not your dominant hand, that you could do
in the beginning,
intricate things with your
all my peers. I had, because I was left-handed, I had more dexterity right away, so I was playing intricate things quicker than they did. But my right hand was doing just regular rock and roll strumming. But then when later on trying to play flamenco patterns, is when I realized, like, wow, okay, this is where my right hand is lacking. To do those really, really fast rhythmic patterns and flamenco.
Right.
And eventually all my friends, their dexterity caught up too. But it just right out of the gate, it was easier to play to play right-handed.
I got you. Now you put a band together, I think you said, when you were like in
seventh and eighth grade.
Yeah. And they would come over, and Mark was like 4, right? And do you remember that, Mark?
I told him the story about. I think maybe we were already in 8th grade, and
quiet.
And Mark
I don't know what's coming. Honestly, I don't know.
Mark we were 3 guys: Carlo Tamayo, Mario Gutierrez, and myself. And Mark would always go up to Carlo, "Can you spend the night?" And Carlo would say, "Maybe next time, Mark. Maybe next time."
Drummers.
And it was like Mark was like 4, or maybe
I just wanted to play his drums.
Yeah,
I
mean that was so awesome. And Carlo was, was like,
I remember
next
that.
time. You do?
I remember that. Yeah, he was real nice.
Yeah,
a lot nicer than my brother.
Okay, right, throwing you under the bus. And you had been building, Rick. You'd been building up bands, and
played around locally in high school bands. We started playing. We were the house band at Sammy's pool hall on South Padre Island in 10th grade.
Right on.
And I remember one time during our break, they're like, "Man, you got to go check out this guitar player. He's playing up the at the bar two bars up." And it's like, "Who is it?" "Eric Johnson."
Oh.
And I was that was 1980, and he was there. Was Eric playing? You could hear him outside.
Right. And You cite Jimmy Page as like the guy that made you change your mind and move from drums to guitar.
Yeah, when I saw The Song Remains the Same, I was like, okay, I want to do that. Yeah.
I always thought that was amazing because I'm like, that's John Bonham that he just traded in.
I mean,
True.
But still,
Good point.
I get it.
Yeah.
And also, guitar. You guys have you really got into the hard, rock, and I love that about you guys because that's my cup of meat. Like.
Right on.
You got Hendrix.
I mean, I grew up listening because of my older brothers and their diversity. My brother Manny would play Bach and Beethoven and then AC/DC. That's where I first heard a whole lot of Rosie. And my older brother Alan would play Bread and Black Sabbath.
Right.
In the same day.
Right, and you were just filing it all in.
Yep.
I like this all.
Yeah.
How did it get? Was your band called Attash? Is that or
my high school band was called Rage, and then right out of high school we formed Bad Habit, and that lasted about 6 years. And same band, but we changed our name to Akasha.
Akash, that's right. Attash is a different band. Akasha from the Akashic Records,
correct.
Which we talked about, and if we probably get into that a little bit. But I want to hear about what it was like on the road. When in the 80s, when you were going around doing that sort of, am I right to call it a heavy metal sort of circuit?
Yeah, it was a heavy. Well, it was rock, hard rock. What's funny is you could see it was like rock circuits, and we played this bar in Lawton, Oklahoma. That's where Pantera would always play, and we'd play everything from Dio to Huey Lewis, right, and Dokken, the Scorpions. So it's kind of like basically MTV '80s. Basically, is what the rock side of it,
right?
And one time we played at this bar in Lawton, and the DJ says, "You guys are great. Just ditch the Huey Lewis, man. You'll be cool." Pantera's coming in next week, man, okay?
Yeah, exactly. We don't need the stains in here from that Huey Lewis.
Yeah.
I went to a concert actually when I was in college, and it was during the day, it was Huey Lewis, and at night it was Santana. Yeah. Wow. And I didn't even watch the Huey Lewis. I was too cool for it.
Yeah. I mean, he had good songs.
He definitely did. I mean, I don't like that bratty kid. I had some of that,
Yeah.
Oh, Huey Lewis. Yeah. Come on, man. That guy can act too.
Yeah.
But it was Santana I wanted to see.
Yeah. Right. And he was
big time.
I forgot to mention, Carlos Santana, because of my Uncle Wayne, he knew Carlos, so he was always talking about Carlos. So growing up as Carlos Santana, Mark Farner from Grand Funk Railroad was a big first addition of influence. Tony Iommi and Jimmy Page.
That's a good combination. I like that Mark Farner in the middle of that.
Yeah.
How about you, Mark? Who were your guys?
Oh man, I started off all metal head. I was a Metallica Slayer head when I started playing guitar, and so it was pretty difficult stuff for me, for a beginner to try to play Metallica, and
couldn't play Proms.
But it was but it was fun. And for the first 3 years, I didn't even touch these 3 strings. Playing, I was playing all rhythm, and I remember listening to Kirk Hammett, going, "That's another world. That's I don't know." That's a whole nother level. I'm not going to get there, And but at the same time, I was always learning like Bach pieces and Mozart pieces and stuff like that, just for fun, just for the challenge, And then I was practicing. I started practicing scales. I didn't really know scales. I remember I didn't know any scales or keys or anything like that. I was just kind of learning by ear. And then a friend of mine. In college, my first year of college, I had already been playing for a while, and I was playing all these arpeggios and everything already, but I just didn't know theory, didn't know scales or anything. And a friend of mine came over, and he said, "Hey, let's jam." I met him in speech class in college, and so he came over and he started jamming. He started playing a chord. He goes, "You solo," or he goes, "I'll solo first," And I started playing a riff, and then he started soloing. He goes, "Okay, now your turn." And he took a ride, and I only knew one scale at that point. I didn't even know what it was. It was A minor scale. I didn't know it was even A minor. I just knew it was something. And I started playing it, and he was playing an E minor, and it was one note off, just F sharp to F. And he stops playing, and he goes, "What are you doing, dude?" And it was like the most moment of my life,
What were you, like 13 or 14?
No, I was just in college. I was like 17.
You said you were in college.
I just first year in college, and so because at that point I was already playing all this stuff, but I didn't know how to put it together in a solo.
You didn't even know what the notes were.
Right? Yeah. And so that was probably the best and worst thing that ever happened to me, because he made me feel. I just said, "You solo," and I kept playing rhythm, and then he left, and I took a. I don't know if you remember those big red Indian notebook pads that flip over.
Yeah.
I took one of those.
Big Chief.
Big Chief. There you go. Big Chief things. I had one of those, and I drew out the fretboard, and I mapped every note out, like, and then I flipped the next one. I said G major, or G, and then A, and then by the time I got to D, I was like, wait a minute, this is the same thing. It's just moving up, and it like clicked to me.
Wow.
I didn't even get it. At that point, it seemed like just randomness to me, like just notes were random. And then once I saw a pattern, my whole world changed.
So that little prompt from your friend who
exactly
he called you out.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
and then
great.
I was like, all right, come back over. Like a month later.
Yeah, exactly. Now I'm sure he's probably
No, we started a band together back then in Kickstart. Yeah, it was Cooper, and and he's great. And he works for NASA now. But wow. Yeah, no, he was the one that that's what people need sometimes. That's why whenever I hear somebody, oh man, I hear somebody say, oh, when I saw this guitar player and that makes me want to throw my guitar away. I'm like, that should be the opposite.
Right.
It should inspire you to play better.
Exactly.
And I hate when people say that because it should drive you to go home and practice. That's what it made me do.
I think of the best people of asking questions to everybody. I think I saw Kobe Bryant talking about how he became Kobe, and he was like, oh, I took this from Michael. I took this from,
borrowed from everybody,
whoever.
Yeah.
And he's like, all these moves, and he would ask them. He would pester those guys.
Yeah.
18-year-old kid. Hey, how you do that?
Yeah.
But learn and become that good.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. Tell me, Rick, what the road was like out there in those days. Touring the country in the 80s, doing the hard rock circuit.
It was back then. All the bands had their own PA and lights. That's especially in that circuit.
Right.
All these unsigned bands. I remember we opened for tons of bands. We opened up for King's X on their first tour. They pulled up in a white station wagon with a little U-Haul trailer.
Right.
And in a couple of metal bands, we opened up for Faster Pussycat and. Our Steve, our guitar tech, loves that.
Loved them.
Oh,
and
yeah.
TNT, this band from Norway, TNT.
I'm not familiar with TNT.
And
Dynamite.
Just a bunch of bands, and we did. We played with Pantera. We did a festival with them. But back then, all the bands toured around with their own lights and PA, and you would set up, residency for a week. From 4 to 6 days a week, and then the 7th day, whatever, you travel to your next gig. So
cool.
we all had booking agents, and that's how we stayed busy. And we travel. It's amazing how people can't go anywhere without their map on their phone. We had a little road atlas, and that's how we got all over everywhere. And it was the first 3 years were fun, first 2 years, and after a while it started getting old. But that's what else do you do?
What was the you had a one of your guitar heroes, or I think you said that Rudolph Shankar.
Yeah, Rudolph Shankar.
So he got caught his attention.
Well, actually, Ulrich Roth from the Scorpions, and so he played in the Scorpions. So one night we were playing at Dallas City Limits in Dallas, and Rudolph Shankar walks in, and our sound guy over the monitor says, "Rudolph Shankar's here." It's like, oh, okay. Right. So I ended up playing "The Sails of Sharon," which is an old Scorpion song, which is very intricate intro.
Yeah.
And so he wanted to meet me afterwards and stuff, and so it was great. That was really cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
You said that. You toured and you kind of went long years out on the road, and you got a little bit.
Well, after the band, we toured. That band was together 10 years, toured solid for 6 years, and we moved to Memphis, and we played around Memphis. We all got day jobs, and then just played at night. And then that band broke up, and I went to Seattle. And ironically, I went to Seattle to play blues at the height of grunge.
Right, right.
It's like, oh, okay, who's that? Eddie Vedder. Okay. And so...
but yeah, you were out there.
So I was doing that, and that's when I was there for 3 years, and I played with, I had been with the same 3 guys with one personnel change in 10 years.
Right.
And then moved to Seattle and played with about 40 different people in the course of 3 years. So when I got to Austin, I was burnt out. I was just so... and that's when I was when you mentioned earlier that I was giving guitar lessons, working construction.
Right.
And Mark... fast forward a couple of years, and he had just moved to Austin and graduated from college.
Right.
And he said, hey, what we should do, some recordings for our family just for like a Christmas present.
Right.
So that's basically how the band started.
Yeah.
You know, and I thought, okay, so yeah, we'll just do some instrumentals, okay. And then next time we get together, he shows up. I was like, "Who's this guy?" He's like, "Hey, this is Alex. We want to have this one song." I say, "I thought we were going to be doing an instrumental album for Mom and Dad." And he's like, "Oh, well, just let him sing a song or two." Okay. And so
he took over.
And you know, so our first album was
8 songs,
8 instrumentals, right?
and 2 vocals.
Okay.
And then the second album was
8
vocals and 2 instrumentals.
Yeah.
And the rest is, are you here?
When you have Alex, that's what you do.
Yeah, exactly.
But nice that you still kept the instrumentals.
Yeah.
It's funny because when we put this project together, I told him, I said, let's do some music that Mom and Dad will enjoy because they never came to our shows. You know, it just was too hard rock or too blues or not their type of music.
It was just too.
It was not their style. And you know, and we just wanted to kind of tip the hat and say we listened and we respect our culture and upbringing. We did listen and pay attention and so we just wanted to kind of do that. The first album was super traditional because it was mainly for Mom and Dad.
Right.
By the second album, we had started really throwing in our influences and mixing in the two. But at the same time, on the first album, I remember we had Rick had me jam on one of his student songs. He said, "Hey, play a solo. Ryan wants you to play a solo on his song," and it was a Latin song. And I was like, "Okay, cool." And at that time, I was really heavily into Strunz and Farah, who are these amazing Latin players, and they play nylon strings. And so I was just listening to them nonstop, going, "Oh, these guys are crazy." And so I was like, "Okay, if he asked me to do that," I said, "Well, I'm gonna try to play a solo like Strunz and Farah." And I had practiced, you know, all through my teens, but once you got into cover band, rock band, I just kind of got lazy, you know, because we were just playing chords and, you know, cover bands and, you know, Brown Eyed Girl or whatever.
Right.
It was nothing.
You're not getting challenged.
Nothing too demanding. And so you get lazy sometimes and you know, and there's nobody's asking for a really intricate Dream Theater song at a bar, you know,
right?
Unless you're at the right bar. And and so I got real complacent with my practice schedule. And so when I took this on, I said, I'm gonna do this, you know, like write a cool solo. And so I practiced it, I woodshedded it, and I gave it to him, and it had all this, and that was like the first taste of Del Castillo stuff, right? For me, my style. And then we decided to put this project together. And one of the first songs was another one that his friend wrote, Mi Cariño. And that was the one where I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna write something that just pushes me. Because at that point, honestly, I didn't think we were ever gonna play this stuff again.
Right. I think you both felt that way, right?
I thought it was a one-off,
right?
And I was like, I'm never got to play this live, so let me play the hardest thing I can write. I'm gonna write the hardest thing I can do.
Play it for the rest of my life.
And
he doesn't like to play it.
Honestly,
he's like, we don't want to play that song tonight. I'm like, yeah, we do.
Come on, dude.
It's like it's your solo. You can do whatever you want.
It's like, yeah,
and that's way beyond Strunz and Farah.
You know,
they don't do that stuff.
I would just have, and it was one of those things where I recorded it, I was like, yes, and I'm done, and never again. You know, I just want to listen to it from afar. And then when they're like, all right, we're gonna put a band together, I was like, oh, come on. I was like, I gotta start practicing again.
But you brought Alex in, right? So and Alex was. He lived near you, but you never met him until
he lived in Brownsville.
Yeah. Right, he lived in Brownsville, and he saw you guys playing music when he was only 10.
Oh, he saw me playing with the guys that I was playing, and he lived a couple of houses down.
Yeah, and that's just that kind of stuff, that synchronicity stuff, you know, that the Jungians, the Campbellian, and all that stuff. To me is just so incredible that he was there and he heard it, and he was probably just like, I want to do that.
Right.
You know?
I know.
And then he finds you, and then it's like...
I found him at a party. It's ironic. I found him at a party, a mutual friend of ours, and they were playing the Canción de Mariachi, the Desperado.
Right.
Robert Los Lobos, you know, the soundtrack
More
was playing.
synchronicity.
And I had never met him, and he was singing it in the kitchen. You know, and I was like, who's this dude? You know, because he's singing his butt off here, and he sounds good, you know. And so I went up to him, and I was like, I'd never met him before. And it was this song Robert's song,
right?
That drew us together. And I said, hey, I'm going to go home and record this song, and I want you to sing it. And he's like, okay. And so it was his CD. I found out. I said, I'm going to borrow your CD. And I took it home and I learned the song, and I brought him over, and that's how we started recording and working together. It was because of Robert's song, and who knew that 3 years later we'd be with Robert playing this song with him?
Right.
I mean, how crazy is that?
It's amazing that kind of synchronicity, lovely thing. Let's go on to song 2.
Sure.
You guys ready for another?
I guess.
I am.
Well, this is just the jam section of a song we call Home.
Okay.
We do the slow section, and then it goes into a jam. So we're just gonna do a little bit of the jam here for you guys.
Okay.
So let's see. Just a short,
just a little,
just a taste,
dude.
Just a taste.
My fingers were getting tired watching you guys play that. So let's get into talking about now Del Castillo's together. You know, Alex comes in and you starting Del Castillo, and then you got to put a band together.
Well, how that all happened is Mark brought Alex and he said, "Hey, man, we worked on this song and this song." I was like, "Wow, you guys wrote those songs?" They were really, really good songs. Mm-hmm. And funny thing is, one of the first songs you brought in, we didn't even put on the first album, which was Sueños Madrigales.
Oh, wow.
And so they brought in a couple of songs to the studio, and I was like, "Those are really good songs." And so we started recording some songs here with no intention of anything, maybe just getting it done by Christmas to give to our parents. Right. Mm-hmm. And one of my students was the head attorney at this law firm that called Gray Carey, I think is what it was called back then.
Yeah.
God, I don't even know if that exists anymore.
Right.
But I would, and he was my last student, like on a Tuesday night. So I would say, "Hey, check out this song," mm-hmm. and he would hear song A, and check out the next week. "Hey, check out this song." So I started playing him over the course of 3 or 4 months, our stuff. And he's like, that's it. I'm sick of hearing this great music. I'm hiring you guys to play at our company party. And I'm like, what? And we had to literally relearn our songs.
Yeah.
And Mark said he was out of shape. You're never out of shape. And he always played like amazingly fast. I mean, I could barely even finish a bar chord of a song when we first started practicing.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I mean, I was like, really?
It is tiring, right? Those are muscles you're using.
Yeah. Coming from 5 years prior, you could do whatever, but 5 years is 5 years,
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm playing. He says, I'm hiring you guys to play at my company party. So you better get the band together. And so that time, Albert was my roommate. Yeah. And Albert's a phenomenal guitar player. Uh-huh. But Alex and I went and bought a I mean, at that time, it was a nice bottle of wine, like $20,
That's still nice.
Yeah. But for that, back then, it's like, whoa,
Right,
we really
yeah.
splurged. And, and me and Alex, like we just opened the cork, and Bert's like watching TV. Hey, what's that? He said, hey, Bert, would you like some wine? And over the course of a bottle of wine, we convinced him to play bass. So because we auditioned some pretty funny bass players.
Oh, yeah.
Remember the guy with Cuba in the toilet seats?
So there was so many. I mean, if somebody was filming, we could have made a comedy.
Spinal Tap.
Spinal Tap comedy.
So we finally we got Albert to play bass, and then when Mike Zioli played drums and Cecilio Ruiz played on the first album, so we got Zioli to play. To join the band or to do this project, which we thought was only going to play the party,
right?
And then we got Rick Holman on percussion, and so we rehearsed and literally had to relearn the songs,
right?
And so then Mark and I said, well, let's just. I don't know why. So let's make it because at that time all you could make was 1,000 CDs. You couldn't make 300 or 100. Right. So we made 1,000 CDs and we took it over to the party and we sold 13 CDs. And I walked up to Paul. I was like, did you force your clients to buy our CDs? He's like, no, dude, I wouldn't tell them to do that. So we thought, well, man, we practiced all this time. Why don't we just go do one show at the Vibe on 6th Street, which used to be Fat Tuesdays.
Uh-huh. Danny Crooks.
Oh, yeah. And Danny, what's so funny is we played the show and Albert was working at Dell. And so he brought 100 people.
Right.
And so like the fact
he's a hustler.
Yeah, the fact that all his friends. God calls Albert for somebody's phone number. He's like, hey, Bert, do you have so and so's number? And he was like, yeah, it's right here.
Yeah, here you go, God.
Yeah, here you go, God. So Bert brought in 100 people by himself. So here's this band. First show in a public, and the crowd is packed. So the first thing, the club owners are going, like, whoa, this is amazing.
Right.
So I remember Danny,
Genius.
running up to me and then saying, man, you guys are so awesome. And then like he caught himself in action. He's like, wait a minute, got to go back into cool mode.
Oh, right.
He goes and then he just stops and he goes, yeah, maybe in about 5 years, you guys will be as on track like Vallejo. Yeah. And I was like, okay, he just changed his demeanor totally. And I need to tell him, I'm sure if Danny sees this, he'll see it. He'll see it. It's like, and then so then he went into like cool business mode. And so we ended up.
That's what you do.
And we're here.
But because then he was switching to the Steamboat, to the new Steamboat that was over on Riverside and Congress, right?
It was really Danny who was our champion in the early days.
Right.
We played his first show. Our first show was with him live to the public because we did a party, obviously a private party.
Right.
But and at that time, I remember we had both been kind of in the scene. So everybody knew of us, musically in the network, like with Cecilio. I played with Cecilio, and he played with Cecilio, and Cecilio knew everybody in the Austin scene. And so it was funny because this was our first show together. And I remember a lot of my friends that were musicians, I was like, are you gigging this night we're playing that? And they're like, no, everybody wants to come see you and Rick play, because they had never seen us play together.
Right.
They knew him and his band and me and mine, but nobody had seen us play together.
Right.
And so that first show was a big deal because it was just kind of like, we didn't know if we were going to play anymore. This was a big, hey, one-off,
Right.
And so it was packed, and it was a big deal, and so we knew it was going to be a big deal. So we rehearsed our butts off, and tried to be as tight as possible and dead on. And then Danny freaked out, and he had he had the vibe, but he's like, I'm going to open a new Steamboat. I'm moving it, you know. And so I remember helping to paint the walls of the Steamboat with Vallejo and all the other bands. We helped put it together, helped him get it. And then when that club was awesome on Riverside for a while, and he had a lot
They
of
had parking.
Yeah, they did.
He had a lot of big touring bands.
Nothing stays at that thing.
Yeah. He had a lot of big acts, national acts coming in. You know, Angelique Kidjo and Coup de Grace was a country band. But he was throwing us in front of all these bands, and like so we were being exposed to all different types of music as far as fans.
Right.
So he really helped build our fan base like that. You know, we got to give him props.
Yeah, sure. Good. I love to give people props. And especially Danny worked for a long time, running clubs, and it mattered a lot to him, and it still does. You know, and
I remember he put us in front of Push Monkey, and I was like, "Here we go."
Yeah,
it's like we're playing in front of a heavy metal band that I like. Push Monkey. I had their CD. I was like, I don't know if we belong here, but here we go. You know, we played, and the crowd went nuts, and we were like, okay. Whew.
You guys belonged everywhere. I saw you first at Momo's, and me and Alex kind of befriended each other then, and we were putting Alex in, like Ben and I started making stuff when he was in college, and he'd be like, "Hey, we needed somebody to play this," and I was like, "Let's put Alex in." So he was in that big D6 that we made. He was in this other thing we made, and I put him in my own. I made a movie, and I put him in it. So like me and him were tight and everything, but I never got that chance to connect with you guys somehow that whole time. So I'm so psyched we are now. But what I wanted to say, now I'm rambling. But what I wanted to say was when I saw you guys at Momo's, all I could think was, oh, they got to go to Antone's. This place can't hold them. The stage can't hold them. This place can't hold them. They need space. And you were literally like probably the next week playing in Antone's. And feeling, like you guys did have a nice reception right away. But it was so, obviously well earned and well, deserved.
Well rehearsed.
That's it, though. That's your guys' work ethic has so much to do with your sound and the goodness of the music.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
How do you guys approach the songwriting when you work with each other? I'm sure you each write individually, but how do you write together?
Well, on the first album, that's actually the only album that we really wrote together, right? So because we're very strong-minded, individuals, and if he has a whole idea, he doesn't want somebody to come in and say, no, let's do this, and I'm the same way. So, but on the first album, what's interesting is the song that we played.
Yeah,
that was one of the few
one of the first
songs that we
wrote together.
Because it was hey, I got this part, and then I said, well, I got this part. Okay, it's kind of like A Day in the Life,
Yeah,
and it's funny because that song. We skipped the intro. I don't know if you realize that there's an intro to that song. It's got a whole intro, and he plays real soft. And he just kicked into the jam. I was like, all right, I guess we're doing the jam. And then I was
we haven't played that song in years.
Right.
I know, and I was like, okay. But I remember when I brought that section to Rick, and then he came up with the second section, and then we ended ching, and I said, okay. And then I kept going back, like I wanted to start with like an intro and then big deal, and then come down, and he started laughing when I started playing the first time. He was like, I said, hey man, it's a journey. We're going on a journey. And he started playing the solo, and then I was like, see, that sounds great. You know what you're doing.
Nice.
I was like, it just takes people on a little journey, But that was one of the first songs we wrote together.
That's really cool. But you guys like each other, and you respect each other. I mean, I guess that has to happen, but it doesn't always happen. Momo's was where Robert Rodriguez came and saw you. He was looking for a Latin band, right? Latin rock band.
He was looking for something a la Los Lobos and not in L.A.
Right.
Even though I don't think we sound anything like Los Lobos, but the nylon guitar and I mean, obviously he saw what he was. I mean, we had what he was thinking of. And cool. We have an instrumental called Spanish Castle Tango, and Robert in his liner notes said that's the soundtrack of that's what I was hearing in my head for Once Upon a Time in Mexico.
Oh, cool.
He said that's the sound that I was going for, which was really cool, and we've been working with him ever since.
Right. So you were describing to me how the hours were a little off when you start. He wanted lessons,
yeah,
right?
he started taking guitar lessons, and I said, okay, well, I teach from so and so. Can you come to my place? And he came like once at 3 in the afternoon, and then next time, hey, can you come to my place? Yeah, where do you live? And he says, can you come at midnight? I'm like, okay. And then the next time is, hey, can you come at 2? I was like, 2 in the morning.
Wow.
Yeah, we're in production. It was like, okay.
Right. So he would just nonstop all hours of the night.
Yeah.
That was the first time I started drinking Monster energy drinks, was having to go to his house and be there all night.
Those those are rough now, I think.
Yeah, I can't drink those
They
now.
have better ones now.
Yeah.
I used to drink a lot of those
Back
too.
in the day, I was like, had to stop at a certain gas station on the way to his house.
Yes.
Because it was just necessary.
And there's a ritual to things too, because once you do want that once, that's how it works with me, and I think with ball players and artists are pretty similar. If it works out, you're like, okay, don't change what you're doing.
Exactly.
I need to eat a piece of chicken. I need a cup of tea.
And one French fry.
Yeah, exactly.
And a glazed donut
and
to
I
go.
got to spin around 3 times.
Yeah.
And then we'd be good.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. And you ended up, he not only giving him lessons, but then he starts asking you to do the score stuff. I mean, what's that? That must be a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. What's funny is we both grew up practicing religiously with metronomes, right? And one night when I was giving him guitar lessons, he goes, hey, play some guitar to this. And it was Salma Hayek moving her skirt to reveal her knives.
Right.
Once upon a...
Right.
He goes, okay, come in right here. I was like, was there a click? He goes, no, just go right there. I was like,
Oh,
what?
right.
It's like there was no method to it. Like, and he's like, just play here. Okay, like, okay, no, let's do it again.
I see. So all of that click
Yeah.
that you're used to was thrown immediately out.
Yeah, I mean, but not that some other things like Malagueña, the click. When I first saw that at Carl's house, I said, "Are you kidding?"
Carl Thiel.
Carl Thiel,
Yeah.
amazing
Producer. Yeah.
musician. He produced the Malagueña Salabrosa, and he was like, "This is the tempo map Robert wants, and it's like this." And we're like, what?
Right.
Because he's thinking movie. He's not thinking,
Yes.
He's thinking
top
energy.
40. Yeah.
It was funny because on the Machete soundtrack, I did a song called 1-800-HITMAN, and the first opening lick is this crazy lick, and he goes, I want it, play something like that, and I was like, okay. So Karl and I was there with Karl, and I practiced it and I got it down, and it was like, I mean, I'm just so used to playing like articulate, and trying to get the notes to ring out and everything. And I gave it to Robert. We sent it to him, and he goes, "No, that's too clean. That's too perfect." And I was like, "What do you mean too perfect?" He goes, "No, I want it borracho. Play it like you're drunk." And I was like, "What?" And I just went, and he goes, "Yeah, there you go. It sounds good." And I was like, "Are you kidding me? I've been practicing my whole life, and you want me to just play whatever?" And he's like, "That sounded good. That's what I'm going for." And so, but he has it in his head. And I was, and then once I heard it in the track, I was like, "Okay, I get it." It was like crazy, sloppy, over the top, like somebody just going for it.
Yes.
And that's what he wanted.
It's like an acting performance at that point.
Right.
I think that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. I was just shocked. I was like, oh man, I gotta stop practicing. If I'm gonna do soundtrack stuff. But
very ironic place to be in, I think.
I know. It was. And Karl was just laughing. He was like, ah.
You did tell me though, Mark, that your relationship with Robert has helped your own like camera and video.
Oh gosh,
work.
yes. Oh yeah. Oh totally. Everything I do, I run by him now. I mean, in the early days, I would do it all by myself, and then show it to him, and he'd be like, "You should have let me do it," or and I was like, like take the dagger out. He was.
Right.
But he's always been like that with me, and I've poked at him, and he pokes at me when it comes to graphics and Photoshop and photos and anything video, and so now I can totally say with confidence that I've tried to steal from him, like you were talking about Kobe and stuff, stealing. I've totally taken stuff from him because I'm going to show it to him, and I know what he likes, and it's actually what I like too, but I don't want to copy him completely, but I want him to be like, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, but that's like being in a band, Elmo. It's not any different. So if you're playing, like if Mark or if Ben and I and Richie and Cleveland are making something in this studio, it's all of our energy. It's all focusing towards the one thing. So each person brings that thing.
In a band, yeah.
Yeah.
But when you're doing the video, editing, your style, everybody has a style.
Yes.
And, he's got his style big time. And it was funny because after doing so much video editing, I went back and watched our live DVD, and it was Robert. It was Robert 101. But it's like there's so much energy created just by... But it's not like that's like not how they would teach in school. But man, it is energetic. That you feel something in there.
Yes.
Just from the way he's moving the camera, and that's not something people teach.
Right. He trusts all his instincts.
Yeah. And so sometimes you think, oh, that's going to look terrible, but it works. Or I feel like if I did this, it wouldn't work in video editing. But then I look back at his stuff and I'm like, it worked. He makes it work. And it's amazing.
Editing, I'm sure, helps too.
You got to. I mean.
Where everything is
amazing.
solved.
Yeah, for sure.
Can we close out? You got one more for us?
All right. This one's called Para mi Sobrina. This is for my niece.
mean, that is.
We did it.
I felt like I had
pulled it off.
that might have been my favorite one. I mean, I
how sweaty my hands are.
I felt like I had arms around me.
Oh man, thank you.
Hey, thanks so much again, you guys.
Thank you guys
for being here.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in. Please hit the like and subscribe button. If you've been listening to this podcast and you'd like to watch it, we have a YouTube channel, Songwriters Across Texas. You've got this episode and lots of other ones to check out. And then also delcastillo.com.
Del Castillo Music.
delcastillomusic.com. Thanks again, guys.
Thank
you, Carl.
All right.
Thank you, guys.